introduce 40 Plus to you and want to make sure that the newcomers, which, would you raise your hand if your first time here? 1, 2, 3. I think we have more than that. 4 over there. Okay, very good. I want to make sure that you all know a little bit about 40 Plus. 40 Plus is a nonprofit organization, and it's an all-volunteer organization, and we're very proud of that. We have been all-volunteer and nonprofit since 1953 here in DC. And if you can imagine, a lot of nonprofit organizations don't make it to even 5 years, much less 64 years. So we're very proud of who we are. We're a very welcoming group, and we actually are peers helping peers. Experienced professionals helping other experienced professionals who have gone through our job search training course. We call it the Career Transitions Skills course. And we're very proud of the fact that it's a very effective course. We have had quite a few success stories recently where even before the class is complete, they've gotten a job. It really does a lot for the people participating. We cap the class at 7 people max so that there is a lot of interaction among the group members as well as a lot of interaction with the facilitators. Facilitators are as well volunteers, but they're experienced, not only having gone through the class, but experienced in facilitating. So I've told you a little bit about our core product and how we can help you, but I definitely want to make sure that you know that we are here for you. We would love for you to come to our Monday morning meetings. It's always great to come out, start the week, taking a positive action in your job search. Even if you don't have an interview, make sure to make it here, do a little bit of networking, and learn through our speakers. So I want to welcome you again and now pass it off to Ken Shopman, who is one of our leaders in this organization. We are very grateful to him.
Great. Thank you, Gerald. Thanks very much. Thanks, everyone. Just want to make a couple of quick additional announcements and introduce our speaker for today. First of all, we're going to have a little bit of a drawing later. If you please share your contact information with us if this is your first time or if you're continuing, because we're going to pick one lucky person, and they're going to receive free admission to our upcoming networking event, which is Thursday the 16th. One of our recent alumni, John Wilhelm, is going to talk about metrics and how he used performance metrics, not only in his search process, but how he uses them today on the job. And he got that job as a direct result of his activities here at 40 Plus. So again, take a minute to fill that out, and we'll make that drawing later towards the end of the program. Oh, the other quick announcement I wanted to make is, if anyone is interested in helping out with a very important upcoming event we've got our annual meeting and celebration dinner. It's going to be the end of March up in Chevy Chase at the Maggiano's restaurant up there. We're going to install our new board. We hope to have a guest speaker, perhaps an expert on LinkedIn or another regional leader. And if you want to get some help, some practice rather, or test out some new skills or experience that you have in event planning, in marketing, working in social media, and so forth, we'd appreciate your help. So see Gerald or myself if that's something that you're able to help us with. We'd truly appreciate it. Great. So all that's out of the way. And we're very pleased to welcome Neal Henderson with us today. Neal is an extraordinarily experienced professional, a veteran of the Navy, so we want to thank him for his service as a career member of the Navy. But today he is a result-producing program manager with proven expertise in integrating program and operational management with organizational learning, knowledge management, and change management to create innovative, agile, employee-focused organizational cultures. He has a track record of turning underperforming teams and organizations into high-performing, results-oriented groups and teams. He has an extensive range of competencies from facilitation and program design to process improvement, change management, coaching, workforce development, and knowledge management. He has what I thought was an impressive and diverse range of certifications I know people who have each of these, but Neal, you may be the first person I've mentioned who I've met who has all of these. He is a project management professional, PMP. He is a certified success coach. He has both certifications from SHRM, the Society of Human Resource Management. He is a human capital strategist, and one that I just can't resist this name. He's a certified Scrum Master, but I don't think that has anything to do with rugby.
It actually does.
Oh my goodness! All right, we want to hear more about that. So, since September 2015, he has been a senior analyst with ICI Services. He supports the implementation of NAVC, Navy, and Department of Defense initiatives. And since August of 2011, he's been the president and founder of Front Row Performance Coaching, where he works with individuals, social and commercial enterprises, and nonprofit organizations seeking to develop their employees and increase their organizational or personal effectiveness. And I think we're all interested in improving our personal effectiveness. So, Neal, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Well, after all that, it all boils down to I like helping people. That's really the fundamental skill that I like to bring about. And interestingly, Scrum Master is an IT deal that history came out of rugby, because rugby is a very reactionary. It's what we're focusing on now. How do we get what we want done now within an overall objection, which is where they grabbed the name from. So, couple things. We have time for question and answers at the end of the program. However, I prefer to answer questions as we move along. And if necessary, I'll be keeping an eye on the time. I may say, well, we need to hold that till later. But it's much better to get the questions answered, in my opinion. I'm also much more comfortable with the interactive presentation. Handouts, I kind of randomly placed them there. They're pretty much, I created that to kind of tag your memory when you go by what we talked about, also to give you space to take some notes. I asked you to be present. There's a lot of outside things happening, metro, various different things. We can put all those thoughts and put them on a shelf. We can pick those back up as we move on out. And finally, like I said, there's no question that is stupid. So, you heard my official bio. The picture was taken in about 1985, I think, 84. But what about me, and why do I really want to be speaking to this group? And my career has been varied. I started off in the Marine Corps. I graduated from high school in 77. I went off to college the first time around and majored, I guess, in beer and women. I didn't do really well. So I joined the Marine Corps in 79. And after 6 years, was discharged with a medical issue revolving around stress. I entered recruiting in 83 and did not deal well with stress, ended up with a bunch of medical problems, and exited stage left. Missed the camaraderie, came back in the Navy Reserve, doing the weekend warrior, and then ran out of money from school the first time around, and then came back on active duty, where I spent about 20 years in recruiting and learning through there. Moving up the food chain, so I ended up, and I was enlisted, which makes my perspective a little different. So I was like a blue-collar worker. I was a foreman, making sure things worked. So my last position was at the recruiting district in Richmond. Had about 200 folks spread out over 4 states. And so I learned I had skills like operational management. I didn't know that when I walked out of the Navy. We'll talk about that later. But I was also a project manager. We had to merge 2 organizations, Active and Reserve Recruiting Command. Had a very hostile work environment, so I had to correct some of that sort of stuff. So I learned a lot of different skills that then I had to learn what those skills were to apply them to the private sector.
Can I just ask you real quick, slightly irrelevant? What state are you from?
Well, I was born in Chicago. I've lived no place for more than 3.5 years until I got out of the Navy in 2008, and I've been up in D.C. since 2008. Mostly Midwest. I've lived overseas.
I got that sense, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, so mostly the Midwest, Illinois, Chicago, Wisconsin. Graduated from school in Wisconsin. But lived in California, Oregon, New Orleans, Japan, Taiwan. So, but when I got out of the Navy, I realized I did all that, my Navy stuff, with a high school diploma. And I realized that a college degree impacted my salary structure. So I was working, I finished up my degree in human resources because that was the fastest way to a degree. And then I went through my own coaching program because I did not really know what I wanted to do now that I was all grown up. And as I switched my career and looked at it, realized one of the things I needed to do was get my master's. DC is the most educated workforce in the nation. So I needed a master's, so I went back to George Mason and graduated from there in 2012 with an organizational development knowledge management degree. And then plunged into the cold world of starting my own business. After 3 years, decided my wife convinced me I needed predictable income. And so I went back with ICI doing same basic stuff. I give you all that because as we talk about strategic planning, a lot of it is talking about how do you structure things. You all probably have used strategic planning in a lot of different things. But this is not going to be new news. But how do we apply this to our careers and our job search is really what we want to talk about. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. I'm going to start off with this bold statement. All the way back to high school, to include my paperboy jobs. And with the exception of joining the Marine Corps, I never have gotten a job through a cold application. What I mean by cold, just finding it in the newspaper through whatever, and applied and have gotten it. All my positions have become my networking and my ability to get my name in front of the right people. To include this presentation. Sharon Armstrong, a mutual colleague, said, hey, when Ken was looking for speakers, he said, you need to talk to Neal. So that is the impact of strategic planning. So we'll talk about that, and hopefully at the end of that, I'll be able to show you how I can make that statement true. Okay, today's objectives. First of all, we're going to talk about the difference between a JOD and a career position. Both are good. Depends on where you are in life. What is strategic planning and tactical planning? What's the differences? And why do they matter? Okay, then, probably most importantly, is how do you apply those to your job search? Okay? So, we want to get a sense of who you all are. So very quickly, what I want you to answer, and like 15, 20 seconds, because we've got quite a few people. Want to know who you are, what's your name, what's your career field, and what do you do when nobody's paying? When you have all the other things, and I have a choice to do things, what do I do? And I'll lead off. My name is Neal Henderson. My career field is human resource consulting and organizational development consulting. And what do I like to do when nobody's paying me or when I make time? I organize rugby tours, preferably international rugby tours. That's a picture of me playing last month down in Cuba. So that's what I like to do. So let's just go around the room. And I'm not going to say in order. So who wants to go first?
My name is Gerald Skinner. the executive director of 40 Plus. My career is brand management and development.
Okay.
I have corporate experience, but I want to go into nonprofit. And what do? Well, when nobody's paying me, 40 Plus. And as well, I love to read.
Okay, to read and to work with the 40 Plus. Okay, great, thank you. Who's next?
My name is Neal, engineering background, mostly in career field in finance. When nobody's paying me, let's go running.
Like to go running, okay. Who's next? Okay.
My name is Eric Curdy, and I'm a finance professional. I work mostly in the Treasury departments of very large corporations. When I'm not being paid, I work on my apartment, which is in the 7th year of a 2-year renovation. And the other thing I do is a whole lot of 40 Plus because I'm the deputy director.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Eric. Laura?
Hi, my name is Laura Ballas. I'm going to define my career field as political communications. And when I'm not being paid, I should like to read.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Steve Rang. As far as career field, that's a harder question. I come out of a background of being a corporate lawyer, securities, mergers and acquisitions. I've also been a chief financial officer of a startup company, but not just when people say startup, that means they're doing something in the garage. This was a venture-backed startup. And I'm looking to do strategy consulting. So it's a change, and so that's why it's hard for me to say what career field I'm in. I know where I was, I know where I want to be, I need to bridge that gap. What do I do when no one is paying me? Well, many things. I like to read. I like to read books about philosophy, about work philosophy, about business strategy, about business productivity. Again, all things that I think will be relevant to strategic planning or strategic consulting. I'm a dad, so I spend a lot of time committed to my children. I'm a volleyball coach, so
Great.
I keep busy.
Great, thank you very much. Who's next?
Good morning, I'm Scott Kamensky. My ideal job is a program manager for a trade association, ideally something like the Director of Codes and Standards, Regulatory Affairs. When nobody's paying me, lately I've been bowling.
Okay, cool.
Catherine Smith. I oversee communications at a nonprofit very close by here. And when I am not doing that, I volunteer to lead the Friends of the Library in my town and garden.
Okay, cool, thank you. Who's next?
Hello, my name is David Martinez. Well, with 10 years accounting experience, and I would like most of my career spent working with association accounting.
Associated, okay.
Yeah, and my next career move, I'd like to continue with association, working in accounting for association.
Okay.
With my time off between jobs, I'd like to learn more about astronomy, attend astronomy club meetings on Sunday nights,
Okay.
and also like to read
Okay, reading astronomy.
and also learn new things.
Great, learning, that's a powerful tool.
My name is Mokshida. My career field is a nonprofit. I'm also trying to switch into IT from learning to code.
Okay.
I'm just starting to see if I would actually like it or not. And when nobody's paying me, I like to travel.
Okay. Who's next?
I'm Tim Watson. I'm a training consultant, and what I like to do when no one is paid me, I'm a big baseball fan, so I'm looking forward to the upcoming baseball season, and I like to hang out with friends.
Okay.
Which team?
The Baltimore Orioles and the Washington Nationals.
Okay.
Head in your back.
I'm a homer.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Claudia. My field is international relations, and when I have time, I like reading, traveling, and friends.
Great. And how do you pronounce your name?
Claudia.
Claudia, okay.
Claudia is correct.
Claudia? Claudia. Alrighty, thank you. Who's next?
I'm David Mark. I'm a political journalist by background, looking to move more into the communication side. And when I'm not getting paid, I like to visit historical sites in and around the Washington, D.C. area.
Great. Thank you. Okay, who's next?
My name is Yemi Ojumu, background in engineering, want to move into customer service as well as training. When I'm not being paid, I like to read, I want to start writing, and I like to visit museums.
Okay, great.
I'm Laura Henderson, and I work in the field of international development. And when I'm not being paid, there's lots of things I like to do, but I'll say running.
Running, okay. Have I caught everybody? What?
Okay, yeah. My name is Dee. My career field is accounting. When I'm not being paid, I like volunteering in a couple of places.
I couldn't hear you. Volunteering?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Summer.
Yeah. My name is Chasta. I have a background in international relations. I've been an executive assistant for what we call a do tank rather than a think tank. And what I like to do when no one's paying me, I'm an avid ice hockey fan, so I live at Verizon Center. And then I also run the largest interracial data and media group, so I plan a lot of events for them.
Great, great.
My name is Marilyn Wilson. I'm a former teacher and administrator, and I also have corporate experience formerly. And I'm looking to move in the nonprofit world and project management or project coordination. And I enjoy getting together with friends and going to museums and seeing different films.
Great. Thank you very much.
James Graham. My background is with the international human rights nonprofit advocacy work. I'm trying to shift over into environmental nonprofit work. In my spare time, I do hiking and biking generally.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I'm Tom Goodwin. My background is the employment industry, a headhunter, employment manager, career coach, and when I'm not doing some of that, my free time, I'm an advocate for 40 Plus. I'm on the board of directors.
All right. Did I catch everybody? An awful lot of commonality and opportunity for interaction, even within this room, isn't there? So we'll keep that in mind as we talk about it. I'll bring that back up later on in our talk. So we know a little about each other, and we want to talk about strategic plan. And as I said, we want to talk about putting structure into how we go about this. So why do we need structure? Any uncertainty out there? What kind of uncertainty are you guys facing? I get a couple?
Well, as I mentioned before, I'm bridging a gap from an existing career to a new career. I see in my intuition the connection between the two, but I've got to be able to make a compelling case, and I have to figure out how to do that.
Okay, so definite uncertainty there. Anybody else?
There's tremendous uncertainty in government funding and international development priorities and NGO funding going forward in this very unstable climate.
Big uncertainty about the change of administration's priorities and where they're funding those priorities. Internationally as well as domestically. So they're, the whole administration is posing a lot of uncertainty, no matter what your political views are. So there's a lot of that. What other type of uncertainty?
The uncertainty that I struggle with is, am I going to be able to find a career or position that's going to be able to pay me kind of what I my worth, what I value, and be able to argue that. I mean, I'm able to get like job interviews and things like that, but what it comes down to is the salary discussion. So it's, am I not looking in the right places, or am I not arguing well enough of like I am worth what I want to be paid?
And will the organization pay for what I want to do to the level that I need to get paid. You know, the organizations have said we'll pay X number of dollars, but I don't want to work for that. So there's some uncertainty there. So there's an awful lot of uncertainty that's floating out. Each one of us has our different ones. Will they hire somebody with my level of experience, even though I'm in career transition, and I want to take a more junior position so I can learn some things? So there are different things. And I see you just joined us. So can I ask you your name?
Glenn Davis.
Glenn Davis, and what career field are you in?
I'm just transitioning out of government, but I'm starting my own company, business consulting.
Okay, great. Well, welcome. Make sure you get one of the handouts. They're miscellaneously placed. So there is a lot of uncertainty. And there's a lot of uncertainty that we create in our own mind. You know, when I came out of the Navy, I said, I don't know what's going on. I've been in an organization for over 20 years. I know their language. I know what's going on. But what's the difference between working here or working in Milwaukee? I want to move to Milwaukee. I don't want to live here. You know, all kinds of things. So uncertainty creates stress. And this is a public service announcement. This is not really focused directly on the topic. But what is stress? Stress is caused really because there's a gap from what we want to do to what we think we can do and where we want to go. There's the old fight or flight. We're waiting for a tiger to come eat us. You know, there's a perceived threat. You know, can I make enough money doing what I want to do? You know, that didn't really show up very well with the but lack of control, feelings of lack of control. Anybody feel that? I'm on like a hamster, just running. I don't know what I'm doing. And I noticed the level of speakers. I feel really honored compared to listening to some of these folks. But metrics will be a good one to apply to. Am I doing the right thing? What are the right metrics? But stress can cause, when it's overloaded, and we tend to be very overloaded with stress, even if we're working full time. You know, but there is good stress. Stress gets you out of bed in the morning. You know, if it's properly, it creates some innovation. And so there are some positive things, but I'm going to concentrate once again on the negative. You know, it creates tunnel vision. Goes back to that. There's a lot of science, and neuroscientists will look at it, and you will, fight or flight, this is the issue. You know, so you tunnel in because of stress. Health issues. I told you I was asked to leave the Marine Corps because of my high blood pressure. I had several medical issues because I didn't deal well with stress. Okay? So mental health, health challenges, all that sort of stuff. But the positive level is if you have the right amount, good amount, that creates enjoyment. Think about an athletic environment or a debate. There's some stress there, there's competition, but it's the right level, you can enjoy it. You know, the competition between the Patriots and the Falcons last night, we go back and forth. There's some stress in that. There's difference of opinion. So innovation comes out of it, achievements. The right level of stress we can call the right level of conflict, difference of opinions. Okay, but how do we take care of ourselves? How do we make sure we don't get into this? And this is the first part of strategic planning, is take care of ourselves. We need to reflect. Think about what we've done well. Think about what's going on. What is the importance? Clear your mind. Be present. You know, everybody says, well, I can multitask and do this. Well, no. Neuroscience actually shows for major tasks, it takes you your brain 15 minutes to switch from one major task to another. So make sure you're present with whoever you're with. Take care of yourself. Be physically active. Yes, sir.
Just as a contribution, what I'll do, Gerald, if it's okay. There was there's a tech service called Shine. I don't know if you're familiar with it. They send you affirmations and articles every morning about productivity. And on Friday, it was about stress, good stress and bad stress. So I'll send it to you, and if you want to send it to the group, you know, okay?
Great, thank you. And there's a lot of work on conflict, difference of opinion, and stress, and all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to get back. Be physically active. Try to work out a couple, 3 times a week. But just get up and walk around. Stretch. That works your body. It relieves things. You know, there's talks about power pose when you go before an interview. There's a good YouTube on that. Be nutritionally sound. And I'm not saying go on some crazy diet. But be aware of how much you're eating, what type of food you're eating. Be aware of the amount of caffeine and alcohol you're taking in. You know, just be nutritionally sound. You know, you don't feed a high-performance engine the lowest quality fuel. Well, we want to make sure. There's a whole meme about what they feed a thoroughbred horse. What do we feed ourselves? So think about that. And really what gets at the crux of our presentation is take care of your control. Take control of your career and take control of your schedule. Because when you're in control, stress is reduced. And you're saying, well, that's easier said than done. So, big thing, be intentional and be present for handling stress. Benefits, increased confidence. Because you're ready to go, your mind is open to different things, you're also going to radiate that, what my term is command presence. How do you appear? So if you want to go for an interview or you're negotiating, you're going to appear much better. Physically, you look more healthy. You tend to stand up straighter, you know, and you're ready to go. And mentally, you're more agile. You're ready to look at things and be able to handle the various different back and forth that you'll face. Emotional stability, big one. How grumpy do we get when we're under stress? So if you take that and you work through that, you just come off just more friendly to be around. Okay, so that is my public service announcement about stress. But taking care of yourself to begin with is the first part of strategic planning. And before we get going, I want to talk a little about the difference between a career and a JOB. How many people need a JOB because you need to pay the bills? You know, that's okay. Understanding my job right now, I need a JOB. I need to consider my career, but I need to get something that has predictable income. You know, I'm not necessarily really enthused about picking up this job, but it's a step that gets me the predictable income. And Maslow's hierarchy there, you take care of your security and your psychological safety. Check. That's a JOB. Needed, necessary, but understanding where you're at. Now the career job, that's where you're at the top end of his hierarchy. You're now being self-actualized. You're now really engaged. You are really enthused. And from an employer standpoint, you are now the engaged worker. You're solving the problems of the customer. You're no longer working for whatever salary. So understanding that is really important on where you're doing your job search. Where am I in that continuum? You know, I got a job, I don't want to lose it, I'm now looking for my career position. Or am I looking for anything that's going to pay me? You know, preferably in my field. You know, so those are the big things. So, let's talk about strategic planning and tactical planning. And they are necessary, both of them are necessary. We're going to primarily go over strategic planning, we're going to touch on tactical planning. Strategic planning, the horizon is long. It's for the entire project. In our case, we're talking about a job search. So it's, you know, my strategic plan is how do I get a job, a position. Now, in business, we usually talk 36 months, maybe as long as 5 years. But the strategic is for that long period of time. This is where you start. And by the way, I'm going to make the slides available to you, you know, so they will be there. But this is where you're looking at organizationally. Where do you want to go? Who's the organization? Well, gosh, you are. So what is my direction? Where do I want to go? What is my vision? That's the strategic planning piece of it. The tactical planning is, how do I make that strategic plan happen? You know, how do I make this work? So it's much shorter in focus. It's much more precise, and it's about implementing those strategies to make it happen. And this is where you're starting to take control, which makes you feel better and reduces stress to the levels that you want it. Okay? So the planning process. And I feel like I'm just running through this, so if you need me to slow down, let me know. Okay? But there's really 3 parts to the strategic planning process. The first one is gathering information. You know, what's going on? You're going to take a look behind you, see what status quo is, what's going on. You're going to be taking a look inward. You know, who am I? What are my strengths? And then you're going to start formulating some ideas and start formulating the objectives and goals. And then you will start formulating the action plans. How do I, you know, what do I need to do to make this go forward? Okay? So, you know, just a little different way of looking at it. So, your vision, in this case, is the ideal position. Where do I want to go? Then you start working down to the purpose and mission. Do y'all know your purpose? What your mission is? We're going to talk about how to develop that a little bit. But what differentiates you? What makes you just extremely happy? You know, and that sort of stuff. Your values, goals, objectives. And there's a difference between goals and objectives. We'll highlight that. We tend to think goals as very specific and measurable. They, in a business sense, they tend to be the broader, more abstract items. They're harder to measure, still can be SMART goals. The objectives are the ones that are more specific. And then initiatives is, you know, what are kind of the action plans that we want to put forward?
Neal.
Yes.
Second. Just on purpose and mission, I went to a seminar in New York over the weekend, and it was on a slightly different subject, but essentially what the guy said about that particular thing was he referred to it as a universal emotion. He says you've got some universal emotion that's driving you. Everybody has one. And this was in the context of networking, of how to identify, you know, quickly identify what the other person's universal emotion, so that you can establish a meaningful relationship with that person, and, you know, they'll help you because they feel like you're connected to them. But I'm saying everyone has a universal emotion, and a lot of people don't think for themselves what their universal emotion is. And so I'm trying to say is that's where it all starts. You don't start there.
You hit the nail on the head, and we'll be going through an exercise to discover that. In sales, we call that the dominant buying motive. What is the reason? And it's an emotional. You don't buy a car because it's blue and it's the right price. You buy a car because of the emotion. Look at the way Apple sells computers. Their computers are going to solve the world's problems. And we're going to do it through these computers. So it's emotion that causes you to buy. And that's your purpose, is what makes you different.
And to the Apple example, a lot of people buy Apple because of the status.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's an Apple, it's not an Android, it's not a Mac, it's not a PC. It's because I have an Apple, so I am one of the people who is important to the status. So that would be the universal emotion, is the need to feel important.
Exactly. Okay. So that's just a different representation. So first part is gathering information. What do I want to go? Ever ask yourselves that? So let's talk about how we do that. And I'm going to talk about a lot of exactly what Steve is talking about. First thing we got to do, sorry about that, I misplaced myself. But how do we define what our ideal position is? What's your ideal position? Can you, anybody gone through that exercise?
Something that plays to your strengths.
Plays to your strengths? Anybody else?
Something you enjoy doing.
Something you enjoy doing?
Something you find meaning from.
Something you find meaning from. Okay. Can you operationalize those thoughts? Can you make a decision based on those? So here's what I'm going to suggest you do. And it's in the on the one page where it talks about ideal positions. Start thinking about, in granular detail, what is it about your ideal position that you want? Start thinking, and they tend to, you'll end up bucketing these things, but, where do I want to work? My ideal place is overseas. But is it in Nicaragua, or is in Philippines, or is it in Hong Kong? I don't know. But start figuring, where's the location? What type of work? Is it collaborative? I'm an independent contributor. Is it IT work? What do we mean by IT work? Is it coding or is it translation? How do I want to get there? I want to live within 4 miles of my work so I can walk to work or bike to work. I want to telework. I want a flexible thing. Go through and all as granular as you can. Go through and write all those things down. Just write them, right? And you can have a list of 100, 150. What are those things that you think make an ideal position? What is my supervisor like? Is it a he, a she? Is it, a directive, collaborative? How do I like to be praised? All those things. Write them all down. And then start bucketing them into about 3 buckets. And they tend to work into like work environment, health, pay and benefits, and type of work. But have all those things written. Then you can now have a Venn diagram. As I am looking at my positions, come on in, ma'am. We got a seat. So you're able to, when you're looking at what position am I going to apply for, what is important to me? Does this job align with what's good for me? And if it doesn't meet, and you'll have to figure out what is that juncture of that ideal position that makes sense. Okay, I need the JOB, so pay and benefits may be more important than the work environment. But now you have the criteria to make that decision. So now you have your ideal position. Okay, does that make sense? Any thoughts on that? Steve?
When you said this recalled to me a book that I was shown many, many years ago. It's called In Transition. It's by the Harvard Business School. And it's written for Harvard MBAs who are looking to change jobs or change careers. And there's an exercise in the book, and I recommend the book to everyone. Again, it's called In Transition. It's published by Harvard Business School. I just looked it up on Amazon. It's $11. One of the exercises is they have a card sort, and they ask you to list, I think it's 16 criteria. And then you take each card and you say, I prefer this over this, and you keep a list. And at the end, the one with the most checks is your your most important value. And so then you can prioritize all the way down. It was a very, very useful exercise, and I've never seen anybody else offer it. So, I mean, Gerald, you might want to work it into your program.
Yeah.
But seriously, I mean, you might be able to get the book in the library. I hope you would for free, but if not, it's $11.
What is the name of that book again?
In Transition. And it's published by Harvard Business School in 1991. If you hold on one second, I'll tell you the author's name. I think the author's name is Mary Burton. Yeah, Mary Lydia
I'm gonna,
Burton.
because of time, I've got to.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to answer a question.
Understand. Okay. So, but that's a really good exercise, and it's similar to the one that Steve just brought up, is to go through, figure out what is your deal, what am I searching for, and making that decision for your job search. Because if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. You've heard that quote. Okay? So, purpose and your value. How many people know what their values now are? You know, you have some idea. We have one. But here is, once again, feeding it, where do I want to go, is what is a purpose? And purpose, in our case, is what differentiates us. What makes us special to our employer? What values do we bring? But it's also, where do we get the most enjoyment? So the exercise that I like to do with folks is have everybody write 10 short stories about themselves. And it's kind of looking back. And it's, you write about what the situation was. You need just a short paragraph. You don't need to make, you know, a 2,500 word essay on each one of these. But it's short. What is the situation? What was the task? What was the challenge? What was the achievements? And what was my portion of that? What was my contribution to those results? I also like to have the feeling that you got out of that. You know, of pride, enthusiasm, you know, whatever feeling that when you finished. For example, when I was coaching, one of my stories was I was coaching the New Orleans Women's Rugby Club. They were a Division I club, and when we were going up for the participate in the national championship tournament in 1995, I was working them through the season, instilling them with a pattern play. You could see as they were gaining knowledge, the light bulbs going on. You could see the enjoyment as they were crushing people because they had a pattern and they were just having so much fun. And when we finished up and we did everything and we're getting ready to pack up, one of my captains said, "We have never been this prepared for a national championship." We took 8th that year out of the nation. And that gave me such a feeling of pride because they were feeling joy. They were feeling like they learned something. So when you compile these 10 stories, start looking at the key phrases and the key words. Highlight them, underline them, and look through the trends. What I found when I did this exercise is I take the most joy and pride and enthusiasm when I'm helping teams succeed. And I see the folks that are doing it succeed as they're producing a product. So I learned that about myself by going through. That really is what I found out is my special value. My purpose is to help teams and the people in those teams succeed. So take those 10 stories, start highlighting the key phrases and key words. The key words now are going to start feeding into your values because you'll start seeing the values illustrated there. This is not an easy exercise. It takes some reflection. It takes some time. But it's a way to look through and really start saying, what is my value? You know, for me, loyalty and teamwork and ethics and that sort of stuff really flowed through. There's another easy exercise for getting your values. And this is the values you demonstrate and that you live, which also are pretty important. pick a list of your fellow colleagues, maybe your family and friends, past supervisors, send them an email, ask them to describe you in 3 words, not 3 distinct words, and collect those. Create a little spreadsheet, once again sort them, and you will see a breadth of words that are what you show up as and the values that you're bringing. You now have a plethora of words that you can now use in interviews that accurately describe how you show up in the world. But it really pounds home your value that you demonstrate daily, that you bring to the table right now. And it can be humbling when you get these responses back. And then, once you get them sorted, like things, put a title on it. What kind of word describes all the words that are there? Note the ones that are given you twice or multiple times. I was really pleased when I saw a lot of folks say honest and ethical and that sort of stuff, because it resonated with what I thought was my values. Okay. So, quickly, your next thing is looking at yourself, doing a SWOT analysis. Does everybody know what a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? So, the strengths and weaknesses are you. And so you want to start doing a complete inventory of your skills. What are you good at? What are you not so good at? And don't forget those things you like to do. Remember, I like to run rugby tours. And in that brought about a lot of project management skills, handling budgets, dealing with foreign governments, and making sure all the details are taken care of. So bring out all those skill sets and write them down. Then you want to identify what you like to do. Some people like administrative. I have a buddy of mine, you can put him in a corner with a stack of paperwork doing policy, and he'll be just happy as the day is long. Kill me. Give me a sharp stick in the eye to do that sort of stuff. So knowing what you like to do and those skills that you are good at and like to do are your strengths. The things that you don't know how to do well and you don't like really are your weaknesses. The areas you want to concentrate on are things that you maybe need to, well, obviously your strengths, but things that you may not be quite so good at, but you like to do. How can I work in those 2 areas? Because if I'm in those 2 areas, you're more likely to be in a career-type position. How many people have heard the phrase, well, he's not good at admin, so we better put him in an admin job so we can fix him? Well, how engaged am I going to be? How much more from an employer's perspective? If I really want to get you engaged, I'm going to get a lot more out of you if you're doing something you like and that you're good at. You stop working.
The Peter principle, right?
Very similar.
You rise to the level of your incompetence.
This is more about putting you in a job
Right.
that you don't like to do and you're not good at.
Oh, it's like you take the best teachers and you make them administrators. It's like, this doesn't work.
Very, very similar, yeah. But yet, it doesn't work. So, look through this and see what your skills are. So this is an internal review. This is but also don't forget how you like to be praised. How do you like to communicate? Those are skill sets. Am I good at networking because I'm an extrovert and can talk a lot? Or I'm an introvert and I really don't like getting those big groups. So how can I find, I understand that's a challenge of mine, so maybe I need to find more intimate networking opportunities. So do a really good inventory of what you do well, what you don't do well, and what you like and don't like.
How would you describe the blue region?
I've struggled with that, hence it's not labeled. That's an area that you're not quite good at, but you are, but you like to do. So, for example, I'm learning SharePoint. I'm not good at SharePoint, but I know I like it.
You're trying it backwards. The blue is the not like to do it, you're good at it. It's like, I might be good at cleaning bathrooms, but I don't want to do it,
Yeah, so it's, I like to do it.
You were talking
but
about the yellow.
I like to do it, but I'm not good at it. That's this area. Because this goes backwards.
Other way around.
This
yellow.
This is,
That's you're good at, but don't like to do.
All right.
The more you like.
Yeah, so, my example is screwed up, but it's right.
Well, it works.
I'd like to do SharePoint, but I'm not really good at it. Okay, so it's going to invest in what I want to do. Now, like to do, remember this is higher, so that would be something that I like to do. The blue is something I am good at, but don't like to do. I'm good at admin. I'm good at policy. So I don't like to do it, but I can do it. Why is that important? Because if I'm looking for a job and I see somebody that's applying and I need that right now, I may be able to say, this is a skill set for me. Not my best part, but that's where I want to go. Now, where you don't want to find a job is in the weakness area. I don't like to do it, and I'm not good at it. So you don't want to be there. Does that make sense? Have I muddied the water?
No,
plenty?
that's good. I'm just curious.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
No, it's just the thing about putting the guy in the admin section because he doesn't know admin. I mean, I had a job in Kenya where, this Australian woman that was consulting said, you're going to be bored stiff because you're going to be writing scripts for 5 years. How can you do it? I said, I went to a Catholic school. No, I don't like doing it, but I'll put myself into a trance and just do it. And I did it for 5 years.
Okay. Now, that's because you know yourself. You can do that. Because there's something about being where you were that was worth doing that work. Money, okay? So, remember that Venn diagram I was just talking about? That became more important than the position. And that's where you will make that decision. None of this is absolute because it's all based on you and the situation. Okay? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Opportunities and threats. This is the other part of the SWOT. This is external. Threats don't really necessarily hugely apply to a job search. However, opportunities, we forget about two major ones when we look at our opportunities. One is the social media. How can I mine the social media for my gain? An example I use is, how do I connect a relationship within a company? Twitter. I find that CEO or whoever's tweeting, and I can find out a lot of information about the company, but I also get to know what they like. So, in my preparation for an interview, I followed. And I know the guy is a Steelers fan. Ooh. Okay? So now I sit there and say, I get asked a management question. One of the organizations I really like is the Pittsburgh Steelers because they hang on to their managers and allow them to grow and learn from their mistakes. Or, as I tweet to them, I really thought your article on this was interesting for the following reasons. So your social media, you can really learn about the individuals who may be making your hiring decisions. So that's an opportunity we don't think about. The other place we don't think about is our Rolodex. Everybody's probably on LinkedIn. And not only our Rolodex, but asking them, who do you know in this company that I want to apply for? Lesson I was learned, whenever I talk to somebody about a job, who do you know who can refer me in here? So that's a big opportunity that generally goes by the wayside. Okay. We've now done the basic work. We know where we want to go. We know our purpose. We know kind of a gap analysis of where, what are strengths and what are weaknesses. Now we need to start setting some goals and some objectives. So actually starting with our, active implementation. What do we want to do? And like I say, goals are generally, in business sense, they're broader. They're more abstract. They tend to be harder to measure, develop an understanding type things. And then objectives are more specific and narrow. I want to do, and I got a couple examples up here. So your objectives, find 5 cybersecurity job descriptions by April. Where the goal is developing an understanding of cybersecurity careers by May. Okay? This is now where you're starting to look, what are the weaknesses or the gaps between where I want to go and what you're looking at, so I can start pursuing those, putting some structure. What am I looking at? So, as kind of an offhand rule, you probably want 3 to 4 strategic areas, strategic goals to go after. You don't want to have 16, 18, because that's just too many. What is the big strategic ones you want? I want to develop an understanding how I use social media in my job search. Okay? I had to learn how to tweet. I had to learn a lot of things when it came to
Understanding, turn around.
Yep. Okay, so those are goals and objectives. Then formulating your strategic plan and finalizing. As you can see, the hard work is in gathering your information and starting to figure out who you are, doing your SWOT. When you do that basic fundamental research and work, the rest of it kind of flows. So now that you have your goals, now you're starting to prioritize. What is the most, I'm in a career search, and I will say you want to have a strategic plan for your career, horizon being long-term, and for your job search, because your end results are different. So what is the prioritization? When I came out of the Navy, I went through my coaching and says, I need to get my master's degree. That became a high priority. I needed to get my coaching certificates. And oh, by the way, you do project management in DC, it's full of check marks. You better have the project management certificate. So I prioritize when to go after it. And now that you got to do the continuing education, I prioritize when I do my continuing education so I can keep those things. Okay, so now you're prioritizing your goals and objectives and what's most important. And now you can start assigning your resources. Time is a resource. It's not just money. And define the tasks so you can get your objectives taken care of. And interestingly enough, you have a presentation here pretty good on defining metrics. What is the metrics that matter to you? I know for me, I need to get out and meet people. So I defined when I went to a networking meeting that I needed to create a relationship with 2 people. So when I came back, I didn't want to just meet 100 people. I need to have a starting of a relationship with 2. So I could, rather than doing just 30 seconds, hey Gerald, let's have a conversation that we then can move on for further exploration. Okay? We're just about there. I'm about 10 after 11, so we're pretty good on time. Tactical planning, I want to talk about this very quickly. There's a bazillion methods, etc. But this is taking control of your schedule. Learn to say no. We all have way too many things in a day than we have hours to get done. So as we're doing our planning, go back to our prioritized goals and objectives and make sure we are working on those prioritized goals. Is this important? So take a look at a year. You know, I know Christmas happens every year. What also happens every year? The government seems to go into continuing resolution. So we know certain things tend to happen regularly. There is always a MOA, Military Officers Association, career fair these particular days. Those type of things are always happening. Put those on your year in sight, so they're there. So as you're starting to plan, if you have a family vacation, make sure you put that on your calendar. You know, your child is graduating from high school. You probably want to block off time to deal with that. Goes back to reducing stress. You have control of your schedule. And then, and only then, do you say, wait a minute, I have a job interview. Is that more important than this particular event? No, Mr. Employer, I can meet with you Tuesday or Wednesday because I have a high school graduation event. Okay? But those are decisions you now can make based on prioritization, and it's on your schedule. Move forward to your quarter, now you're starting to fill it up with those more things that pop up. I know there's out there's a program, these type of things. Week, month and week, same thing. You're getting more and more granularity, and you're now saying what time you're going to do things, how much you're going to do, so you can say, hey, I've done this. This is what I've done. I've got a purpose for getting up in the morning, and I'm going to talk to X number of people, all in service towards your prioritization. That's your structure. That's your framework. But if you continue to work, so how do I take my 40 hours if I'm going to dedicate 40 hours to working for finding a job, or I got 4 hours a week. I'm working here. How do I make those 4 hours fit into everything else? Takes you off that treadmill and gives you control, reduces your stress. Okay. So, we've kind of gone all through the strategic process. Yes, ma'am?
I came in late.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm just wondering if you have a printout of what you've gone through.
Yes, ma'am. We have a handout. It's pretty brief, but we're also making the slides available.
How do I get those slides?
Gerald will announce that.
On our website.
Okay.
Did you give us the electronic?
Yep. So, and when you take a handout, my contact information, everybody feel free to call and ask questions and whatnot. I am available.
You don't mind phone calls?
No, ma'am. Shoot me an email so we'll coordinate schedules.
Thank you.
But, so we've kind of gone through the structured process. I think as I've gone through this, you can see how I worked my network, did my planning, so I put myself into the way of a position that I wanted. Even now, as I'm moving forward, I have my strategic plan. How am I moving from here doing this type of work to where I want to be in my ideal position? So with that, is there any final questions? We've got a couple minutes.
So there's two things that you had brought up earlier. That it's one, when you were talking about with your own personal experience, how your degree impacted your salary when you were originally working. You had your high school diploma, then you were working towards getting a degree. But also being in DC, and that everyone in DC is educated, and so you ended up getting your master's. how does it, in working on the strategic plan, help you then, once you're applying for the actual job, put you above the rest? Because right now you're competing with everyone that has same backgrounds and, so.
Great question. And the question is okay, when I first started this, I had a high school diploma, and I said I needed to get these things. How did that now impact my strategic plan? A couple of things. It moved me along the peg. So one thing about a strategic plan and tactical planning, you refresh them regularly. But how did it impact how I was competing? Well, it now brought me up to the level of competition. I was no longer a high school diploma graduate with a lot of experience. I was now a master's qualified person with the appropriate and experience. So now, because my competitive package was stronger as a whole, before it was missing that. Now, the other factor that when you're doing your strategic plan is, what is the degree I want to get, if that's what you're after. I chose the George Mason program because you actually get 2 degrees, organizational development and knowledge management. So there's 2 there. So I chose that one for very strategic. I got 2 for 1. I also, because resources, my VA paid completely there. Where if I went to John Hopkins or American, I'd have to come up with about 30 grand per year. So there was some strategic resource decisions that went into that. Does that answer the question?
And in part it does, because I guess for me it's that, I have a master's degree, and, like most people in DC, and most people in DC are international relations, and, speak multiple languages. I have all that, so I'm at par with a lot of people. I'm trying to get myself above that, so that when I was talking about earlier of arguing like what I'm worth, how do I then say, I'm going to move out of 5 figures to 6 figures, and I am, above some of the other.
Right. So that's where your SWOT analysis comes, and you're taking a look at the external. What is the environment? What separates me from the others? What is those things? And it may be a certificate education. It may be highlighting different experiences in your background. I've given the example of mine. If I want to bring out project management, I talk about the merger activities and the things I had to do for change management around that. If I'm looking at an HR position, I talk about the mentoring and onboarding. So it may be adjusting what you're presenting based on the position. But that's where that SWOT analysis, what is the external opportunities and threats, and how do I separate myself? What is that gap there? That make sense?
Neal, can I help with that for just 1 second?
I'm going to say no because we're at 11:15.
Good.
And we are at the end of our presentation. My contact information is if you want to email me, etc. Absolutely. I want to thank you again. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I'm just going to ask people who are here for the first time, and I have